discuss this month, the month that we just started. Today is the 4th day of the month of CHESHVAN, on the Jewish calendar. Every single Yiddishkeit sees time is very, very significant. I'm not talking about being timely, but time. Judaism sees time as a creation, as an entity that exists not just in order to enable people to communicate or enable people to live a certain lifestyle, to work or for socializing or for anything else like that. You need to have a set amount of time, but that, as we've learned, science has discovered a little while ago, a few decades ago, that time is actually a creation. It is a real being. As such, every single moment in time is not just seen as something that happened to have passed, that is relative to me and relative to you, and it's not really significant, but every single moment in time is a creation that Yiddishkeit says we must treat, so to speak, with respect, we must treat with, and must cherish, and must honor, and must use wisely. Thank you. So we're coming now from a fantastic month, the month of Tishrei, a month that is filled with holidays. And we move into a month that is, so to speak, a low. So to speak, there's nothing there. Or that's what it would appear. It would appear that it's just a month that is empty. So we have, Yiddishkeit teaches us, there is a famous discussion amongst Kabbalists, this world, everything that we experience, is it a physical world that it has some spiritual ideas behind it? Or as the Kabbalists put it, and this is what actually the conclusion is, that really we're living a spiritual reality that has a physical manifestation. Which one is it? Is it a spiritual world or a physical world? The Kabbalists insist, and this is a path that we will follow, that the reality is a spiritual reality, a godly reality, that exists in the spiritual realm and has physical manifestations. I'll give you an example. Today we're going to talk a bit about water, because one of the elements of the month of CHESHVAN, as you could see in the chart, which didn't make it in actually. I'm sorry about that. But every single month has an element, has a particular element. I'll just make a note for next month. The element of the month of CHESHVAN is water. The significance of that we'll get to a bit later on. Water has a certain quality, has a certain sense, it has a certain power. It has a power over us, so to speak. Practically speaking, water is used to clean. Why is water used to clean somebody? So we'll say, well, that's how it works. If you want to clean yourself, you have to use water. The Kabbalists will say that it works the other way. The reason that water works to clean somebody physically is because spiritually it has very powerful cleansing powers. Intense cleansing powers. And therefore, physically, the physical manifestation of that is that it could also be used to clean somebody physically. An example of that, you might be familiar with the concept of mikveh. Mikveh is a ritual bath, basically like a very big bathtub, a very small swimming pool, or rather wading pool, that people use at different times. I try to use it on a daily basis. There's a commandment for women to go after marriage on a monthly basis, almost. The Rambam Maimonides makes it very clear that the whole purpose and the whole idea of this water has nothing to do with cleaning a person physically, because a person has to be physically clean before entering these waters. But what does the water represent? Spiritual cleaning. That when a person goes into the water, they become spiritually cleansed. They become spiritually purified. So now, why is it that physically when you want to clean yourself you use water? The Kabbalists will say the reason that physically when you want to clean yourself you use water is because spiritually that does the job as well. Spiritually, when you want to clean yourself you use water, and therefore the physical manifestation of that is that you clean yourself, you take a bath, you take a shower using water. And the same thing is also with everything else that we encounter in our life. When a person experiences one thing or another in life, you might have heard of different stories of people that had different challenges, different difficulties, and when they checked their mezuzah, suddenly everything became fine. When they corrected one mitzvah or another, everything became fine. Why so? How so? Because really we're living a spiritual life that has physical manifestations. This is a very important point, because if we want to figure out how to have a successful life, where are you going to look? Everybody's looking for success. Everybody's looking for happiness. Everybody's looking for just to have a peaceful life, to have a good life, in whatever which way we might translate that, we might look at that. So where does one look for the ingredient, for the secret? How to have a good life. No, there are a lot of people that are making a lot of money off of promising people, read this book, follow these simple steps, and voila, you'll be there. In no time, you'll have everything that you want. Just buy these herbs, you'll buy it for a very good price from me, right? And you'll be very wealthy, you'll be very handsome, you'll become beautiful.
Some herbs can do that.
I'm sorry?
Certain herbs can do that.
I won't get into that. Everything is being recorded, right? There are a lot of people that are making money off of this, selling millions of books, making millions of dollars off of this, so maybe this is their way of becoming happy. But really, where do we look for happiness? Where do we look for success? Where do we look for the blessings that we want to have in life? Well, it depends how you look at life. If you look at life as a physical function, as something that we just do for a bunch of years, a bunch of human beings are just doing a bunch of things, so then let's look at one person or another, let's see what makes this person work, that person work, the 7 secrets of successful men, or whatever, and so on and so forth. We look at different physical places to give us practical ideas of how to have a successful life. Yiddishkeit will say, well, depends how you look at life. If you look at life as a physical function, as just a physical experience, then 100% the only way to find happiness or to find the secret to success in life is to look at these places. If you believe that life, however, is spiritual, if you believe that there's a source to life that is beyond the activities and the experiences that people do and experience on a regular basis, so then you have to look at a spiritual place. So you have to look at a different place to find the answer to your secrets, the answer to your questions, the answer to your dilemmas. And this is what Yiddishkeit, there's a famous saying, the founder of the Chabad movement, the Alter Rebbe, that he once told his disciples a cryptic message. He said to them, you have to live with the times. And his disciples didn't really know what he meant by that. And he didn't really share the information, he didn't really share the secret of what this is all about. And his successor, the next Rebbe after the second Chabad Rebbe, explained that when his father said that you have to live with the times, he's referring to the weekly Torah portion. According to Jewish tradition, every Shabbat we read a different Torah portion. And what the Alter Rebbe was saying is that the weekly Torah portion has a significant message to the life of every single one of us today, now. So today, if we want to have a particular message that's connected with us today, the spiritual source for it, the spiritual message for today, is found in the weekly Torah portion. This is true of the parsha of the week. This is also true of general life. When we want to have the answers to questions, when we look at the Torah, we look at our sources, of there we find the source of all the answers. And there we find the answer to our questions. And there we find the guidance of how to live our life, to have the blessings that we all want to have in life. Based on this, Life is a spiritual experience that has a physical manifestation. So therefore, when we look at the previous month that we've celebrated, I'm not going to focus on that too much, but I'm just going to use that as a counterbalance to the month that we're in, that we just started now. The month of Tishrei is a month filled with holidays, with Yomim Tovim, with happy days, with serious days, with somber days, with all different types of days. Why is that? Not just because the calendar happened to have fallen out, it just so happens to be that this previous month is just happened to have many holidays. But there's a particular energy that is connected with the month of Tishrei that, so to speak, caused this energy. Let me just be very clear before I start out, I'm going to be using this word throughout our lecture this evening. Energy, we're talking about a certain force that God has placed, that God has put into function, put into the cycle of what we know of as a year. So God creates a certain energy and He plans it out. He sets them up in a particular way that the first month of the year, or the seventh month of the year, depending on which way you start counting, has this very, very intense energy, and therefore the effect is that we have Rosh Hashanah, we have Yom Kippur, we have Sukkot, we have Shemini Atzeret, we have Simchat Torah, and so on. So the holidays are really an effect, an after effect, a byproduct of the spiritual energy that exists during the month of Tishrei. And therefore we understand the month of Tishrei is quite intense because it has so many holidays. And because we say that time is a creation, this is a very important point, because we say that time is a creation, so just like when you experience a particular physical experience that gives you a certain feeling, it gives you a certain rush sometimes, it gives you a certain epiphany, whether you go to a certain place, you go to the Grand Canyon, you go to the Niagara Falls, you go to Algonquin, you go to different places, and it gives you a certain feeling. My mother is into art, and for many years she hasn't painted, but a number of years ago she spent some time in the Alps, and she was suddenly inspired to start painting again. She's not a professional, she's certain physical places, we all know this, certain physical places remind us of certain things, inspire us of certain things. So too, this time work. Time has that energy, time has that ability as well. It's unfortunate that many times we live life without thinking about that, without realizing that. Without realizing that time actually has a certain ability to inspire us, to give us a certain experience, to give us a certain power and certain energy. The month of Tishrei is one of these times that has so much intensity that if we listen to it, we could experience something very significant. Just like going camping or going to Niagara Falls. But there are different people that are inspired by different things. Some people are awed by Niagara Falls. Some people are awed by the Grand Canyon. I'll never forget, I was giving a class, some of you might have heard this from me. I was giving a class to a number of lawyers. This is a number of years ago already. And most of them insisted that they're atheists, but they just still love to come back and debate intricacies of the Torah and understanding the verses and arguing about exactly what God said and what He answered and so on and so forth. They insisted that they're atheists. And at one point, I remember I asked, did you ever experience God? And again, and one of them said, the most, so to speak, outspoken, so he never, he doesn't go to shul, he doesn't do all these things, but he remembered once he drove to the Grand Canyon, and while he was driving, he didn't really think about he was just thinking about the road, and having driven there a number of months ago, I know what it means. You're just focusing on your road, and you're focusing on the dirt road that you're driving on, and to make sure that you're staying on there. I was fortunate to have experience of driving in Toronto snow, so I was able to navigate the car in the soft sand. But he really wasn't looking at what he's seeing until he got to the rim. We got to the top of the Grand Canyon, and so he got out of his car, and the only thing, he was just overwhelmed. Oh my God was the only thing that he was able to say. Oh my God, oh my God. And having been there, as many of you know, a number of months ago, I could relate to that. There are certain places that do this to you. How are you going to explain that? Is it just the mystique because everybody speaks about it? No, there's something that, and some people go to the Grand Canyon. I'm not saying that the Grand Canyon is some type of overwhelming place that every person will be moved like that. Every person finds their own thing. Some people are very moved by seeing a blade of grass, and some people are very moved by seeing a flower, and so on and so forth. Some people are very overwhelmed by seeing the great sight of the Grand Canyon. This takes us to time. Time also has these experiences. Walking down the street, however, a mundane street, you won't necessarily have this feeling that you'll have in these great places, like the Grand. I'm just using the Grand Canyon as an example. Some of you might connect more to Yellowstone. Some of you might connect more to the Amazon or to wherever it is. But I'm just using the Grand Canyon as an example, a place that could be overwhelming. The same thing is also in time. Time has some of these overwhelming moments, and time has some of these flat moments, these mundane moments, these moments that really don't appear to mean anything to us. So what's with the month of CHESHVAN? The month of CHESHVAN. The name of the month of CHESHVAN, Mar CHESHVAN, the Hebrew calendar. What does that mean? Where does this come from? Mar, most people translate as bitter. And some people say, aha, the reason that it's called Mar CHESHVAN is because this month is very bitter. There's no holiday there. Right? But in reality, Mar is more connected with something else. Mar is connected with the word rain. Mar is connected, we have this, a similar connection if you're familiar with the prayers we say in the Vahayam Shema. We refer to rain, Yoreh Umalkosh. Hein Gom Kamar Midli. There are a number of places in Tanakh, in the holy writings, that we refer to rain as Mar. Mar CHESHVAN is therefore the time of rain. The time of rain. Why is this connected with rain? Very simple, because this is the time that rain begins. In fact, I didn't mention it over here on our chart, but there's somewhat of a small holiday in the month of CHESHVAN, in that Zayin CHESHVAN, the 7th day of CHESHVAN, in Israel, they start praying for rain. Right? And what happens? This month is connected with rain. I mentioned earlier that Kabbalistically there's an element that is connected with this month. The element of this month is water. Let's go through a number of the characteristics of this month, and then we'll focus on deciphering them, the details, getting down to it, and more than anything else, how to apply it to our life. Biblically, the month CHESHVAN, the month of Mar CHESHVAN, I should preface by saying that the Hebrew names for the Jewish calendar came from Babylon. Their source is not from Jewish sources. They were included by the earliest Chacham. We're going back 3,000 years, but less than 3,000 years, 2,500 years that we're using these names. But biblically, none of the Hebrew names of our calendar are to be found in the Bible. So how is the Bible referred to, the Torah, how is it referred to this month that we're in? Chodesh Bul, the month of bull, not to be confused with the animal. But why bull? Connected with Mabul, or connected with rain again. So we see that in the names, rain plays a very big role. You can say on a very simple level, because that's when it starts raining. But going back to the introduction that we made, that something physical that happens is not just because of a coincidence. This is an experience that happened, but the reason that this month is connected with rain is because spiritually, this is a month of water. This is a month of rain. What this means, we'll get to shortly. Major holidays, none. Seems insignificant as well. We'll hopefully get to that as well. What's the connection between rain, the fact that there are no holidays, the fact that there's a flood, major event that we read about? The letter of the month, every single month has its unique letter that is connected with that month. This comes from Sefer Yetzirah. Sefer Yetzirah is one of the fundamental books of Kabbalah. that some say it was written by Abraham, but regardless of who the author was, it's universally accepted as one of the fundamental books of Kabbalah. So according to the Sefer Yetzirah, and all these things are based on what it says in Sefer Yetzirah, the letter of the month is letter Nun. The sign, the mazel of the month is Akrab, Scorpio. The tribe of the month, we know that there are 12 tribes, the children of Jacob. The tribe of the month is Menashe. The sense is Reach, smell. The controller is Dakin. And the color is something that sounds like violent. Is violet. Right? What that is, I'll leave it to some other people to describe. So we're not going to get into the color, definitely not tonight, but we'll try to get to as much as possible this evening. There are two modes in life. There are two modes in life. There are times that we give, and there are times that we take. Hashem created every single human being. In fact, almost everything in this world has to give and has to take. A human being is created in this way. You must give, you must take. A person that only gives has nothing to give, because he has to take as well. A person that only takes can't survive. Now they say a cute idea that there are two bodies of water in Israel. There's the Kinneret and there's the Yam HaMelech. The Kinneret is sweet water, and the Yam HaMelech, the Dead Sea, is the Dead Sea. It's called the Dead Sea for a reason, or as it's called in Hebrew, the Sea of Salt. Why is it called the Dead Sea? Well, the real reason is because nothing could survive around it. But perhaps a deeper meaning into it is because, or why is it that nothing could survive around it? Because the Yam HaMelech only takes in, it doesn't give out. It doesn't give. The water doesn't continue. After the Yam HaMelech, the water doesn't continue. The Kinneret, on the other hand, flows. It starts, it receives, and it continues, it gives. The Yam HaMelech is just gimme, gimme, gimme. And give me more, and give me more. That's all. Not ready to share anything, not ready to give anything. And what's it called? The Dead Sea. Because we are created in a form that we're supposed to give, and we're supposed to take. Taking is part of being able to give. If you never take anything, you can never give anything. You say, how does a person become wise? By listening instead of speaking. All these years of investing, of listening instead of speaking, pay off in making a person into a wise person. You want to be able to share information, you want to be able to share your wisdom with other people, you first have to keep your mouth closed for a number of years. And that enables you not just keeping your mouth closed, but taking in from other people, listening to other people, listening to older people, wiser people. And the payoff is that you have something to share at a later time in life. And so this is all give and take. In our life, many times, we can find ourselves much more comfortable taking than giving. It comes quite natural to us that when we want to take from other people. But when it comes time to give, we either feel uncomfortable or we're nervous about it. We don't feel very comfortable giving. When I say giving, I'm talking about advice. I'm talking about becoming a leader instead of just a follower. I'm talking about standing independently as opposed to just relying on other people. Standing independently, becoming an inspiration to the people around you. Giving in any which way. And this is really the month of Tishrei and the month of CHESHVAN. The month of Tishrei is the energy of such that Hashem says, you know what? This month, I'm going to treat you like my child. I'm going to treat you like my spouse. I'm going to treat you like the most precious thing to me, and I'm going to give you everything. I'm going to treat you like my most beloved student. I'm going to treat you, and I'm just going to give you and give you and give you. This is the energy of the month of Tishrei. You have the time to connect to God, to become one with God in this way and that way, to dance with God, to cry with God, to laugh with. You have the whole month, the whole gamut, the whole a whole array of different emotions and different experiences that we all go through in the month of Tishrei. And then what happens? Suddenly we're left in the dark. This could frighten some people. This could give some people a feeling of there's nothing to do, there's no connection anymore. That somehow we've disconnected from God, somehow we don't have what it takes anymore. An analogy that is found in Kabbalah and in Chassidus is an analogy of a teacher and students. And when I say teacher and students, I don't just mean your grade teacher or somebody that taught you one subject or another, but a true teacher. A person that has dedicated their life to raising you, to educating you, to shaping your life. And sometimes you'll have in the life of the student, if you're fortunate enough to have such a teacher, you have the great opportunity to study from a particular person. And you're so excited about it. And it feels so good to you. And it feels so uplifting. And then suddenly you might find yourself that the teacher is gone. And at first, that might be frustrating, that might be very disturbing, that might be frightening. What happened? Where am I? What am I? But in truth, what could be happening is your teacher saying, you know what? You're strong enough to stand on your own. You know what? I have confidence in you, that you could be independent, that you're strong enough, that you have what it takes in order to continue giving. You have what it takes in order, you've taken in all the messages that we've studied, that we've done, and now you're ready to share this with others. This is like the famous, you might have seen the poster of footsteps on a beach. Quite a famous, inspirational anecdote of this person that lives a long life, and part of his life is a very difficult life. And he comes up to heaven, and there's a replay, there's a video being displayed of this person's entire life. He starts going through life, and he sees that there are two sets of footsteps on the beach. He turns to God, who is this? He said, well, it's your footsteps and my footsteps. And as he's going through life, and suddenly he sees where there was difficulty, where there was challenges, there was only one set of footsteps. He says, what's God? What's this? In my difficult moment, in my difficult time, you left me? And in that anecdote, God says, no, that's when I was carrying you. But there's a very powerful point in knowing the Jewish idea is that we're never alone. But what does that mean? But sometimes it might appear that way. And when it appears that way, it's God telling us that now you have the strength to, so to speak, be independent. Not be independent of God, but that you don't need my constant reminder. You don't need my constant nudge. You don't need me to uplift you. Now it's your turn to do this on your own. Now it's your turn to accomplish this on your own. I'm not going to inspire you in this month. You will find a way to inspire yourself. Not because I don't like you, not because I'm distancing myself from you, but I've given you so much that you have what it takes to stand tall on your own. You have what it takes to shine on your own. And this is the month of CHESHVAN. The month of CHESHVAN is when you don't receive any gifts. It's a cold month. But it's a month of divine wisdom. It's a month that when you tap into divine wisdom, you're not limited in any of your pursuits. So where does this take us to these different characteristics? And this explains to us why there's no holiday. Because a holiday is God connecting to us. A holiday is God telling us, okay, let's spend some time together. Here, one of the words for holiday is a moed in Hebrew, in biblical Hebrew, which is connected with becoming one, noadati, which is to become one. That a holiday is Hashem telling us that I'm becoming one with you. It's an intimate moment that we spend with Hashem. So these holidays that we had throughout the month of Tishrei, it's Hashem just being close to us, close with us, and close with us, and close with us, and then Hashem says, okay, fine. Now let me see you do this on your own. Oh, but I can't do it on my own. No, you could. You have the strength. You have what it takes. I have faith in you. That's the month of CHESHVAN. Therefore, there are no holidays. Because if there are holidays, God is saying, you know what? I still need to hold your hand. I still need to carry you. I still need to push you. Still need to pull you. The month of CHESHVAN is no. You're doing this on your own. However, it says in Tanakh that Shlomo HaMelech, King Solomon, did want to make a holiday in the month of CHESHVAN. Which holiday? The inauguration of the Holy Temple. He wanted to change this month because this is a month that is dependent on us, on people. This is a month that we need to do our work. In the month of Tishrei, as I said, God does, so to speak, all the work. In the month of CHESHVAN, we need to do this. We need to make the effort. We need to make a difference. Shlomo HaMelech wanted to do this. Shlomo HaMelech said, you know what? I'm building the first Holy Temple that stood, unfortunately, just for 410 years. May the third Beit HaMikdash be rebuilt. Shlomo HaMelech says, let me finish in the month of CHESHVAN, which he does. He builds the Holy Temple. It takes him 7 years to build the Holy Temple. After 7 years, he finishes in the month of CHESHVAN, and he's hoping that this will turn into a month of a holiday, because there are other things that happen in the month of CHESHVAN. We read last week's Torah portion about the flood. The flood that destroyed the whole world started in the month of CHESHVAN. It also finished in the month of CHESHVAN. The world dried out in the month of CHESHVAN a year later. So the month of CHESHVAN was really known as a difficult month. It was known as a month that it says actually in the Medrash that every single year in the month of CHESHVAN the world used to start shaking because of the flood. Shlomo HaMelech wanted to rectify that. Now, why did the flood happen? So the Torah tells us that the flood happened because people lived only taking and not giving. And what they were giving, they weren't supposed to give. They were stealing. They were living very immoral lives, very hedonistic lives. Lives not dedicated, lives not doing that which, not living up to what they were supposed to. So God brings a flood that destroys the entire world. So what do we have? Once again, the same point. That in the month of CHESHVAN is a focus on our behavior. The way we live our life. The way we give, the way we take. The way we interact with other people. King Solomon tried to rectify that. Try to turn it into a time when we celebrate, so to speak, with God. When we're given this energy. And he builds the Holy Temple, concludes in the month of CHESHVAN. However, God doesn't accept it until next Tishrei. Almost a year passes by, and the next year, around the high holidays, is when the inauguration of the Holy Temple happens. What's God saying in that? It's not a time for holidays yet. You still have work to do. Yes, the Holy Temple is built, but there's still work that needs to be done by people. And therefore, there are no holidays in this time. When Mashiach comes, this month will become the month in which the Holy Temple will be inaugurated. Why? Because our work in perfecting this world, when we behave in a moral way, when we behave honestly, when we behave the way people are supposed to behave, the way a Jew is supposed to behave, living up to the way God wants us to live, we transform this world. We make this world into a beautiful place. And that time, CHESHVAN will become a month where we celebrate, where we see our relationship with God. It'll be expressed in having a holiday in the month of CHESHVAN, that the Holy Temple will be inaugurated in the month of CHESHVAN, it says in different sources. So it'll become a month that will have a holiday. And this is also connected with the letter Nun. I'm not going to get into all the details of this because the letter Nun, but the letter Nun is very much connected with Mashiach. So while the month of CHESHVAN feels dark, it feels gloomy, it feels holidayless, but it has a very strong redeeming factor, and a very strong connection with Mashiach. There's a story that some of you might have heard from me connected with a story that happened with two great saintly men, Reb Zusha and Reb Elimelech. Reb Elimelech, he's known as Reb Elimelech of Lizensk, and Reb Zusha is his brother, who is known as Reb Zusha. And they used to travel around, and one of their claims to fame was the fact that they did whatever they could to take people out of prison. They lived around 200 years ago, when there were many Jewish people living under the tyranny of local lords, and at their whim, Jewish families were thrown into prison because they didn't pay up their rent, because they didn't pay up this, they didn't behave exactly the way these lords wanted them to, and they were thrown into prison. Rabbi Elimelech and Rabbi Zusha made a point of trying to get every single Jew out of prison that they were able to. Sometimes it meant bribery, sometimes it meant collecting money to pay for rent, so they did many different things. But sometimes it also got them into prison as well. So at one point, Rabbi Elimelech and Rabbi Zusha are in prison. And Rabbi Zusha was known as a very, very warm Jew. He was a very emotional Jew, a passionate Jew. And Rabbi Zusha wakes up in the morning, and then Rabbi Elimelech wakes up, his older brother wakes up, and Rabbi Elimelech sees his brother crying. Sees Rabbi Zusha crying. So he asks Rabbi Zusha, "Why are you crying?" She says, "Because I can't pray." "And why can't you pray?" So he points, in the middle of the cell, there was a bucket for people to relieve themselves. So in the middle of the cell, there's a bucket for people to relieve themselves. And according to halacha, you're not allowed to make a blessing, you're not allowed to pray in a place that is so filthy, that smells. He says, according to halacha, I'm not allowed to pray. So Rabbi Elimelech, his brother, tells him, "But listen, why do you pray?" He says, "I pray because God told me that I should pray." So now Rabbi Elimelech says, God is telling you, don't pray. The same God that you usually pray to. So why are you happy usually? Because you could connect to God. How do you connect to God? Through prayer. So the same God that you connect to through prayer, today is telling you, do not pray. You're not skipping prayer because you're tired or because you're lazy. You just can't pray because the God that told you to pray on a daily basis told you now, and that in these circumstances, you're not allowed to pray. Rabbi Zusha heard this idea. He says, "Wow, you're right. I didn't think of that." And sure enough, what does he do? He starts dancing. And you know, real dancing is contagious. You see somebody dancing, you dance along. Right? So Rabbi Zusha starts singing and dancing, and his brother is singing and dancing together with him. They're both in seventh heaven. And the other cellmates see them dancing, so they also join the dancing. And before you know it, there's a whole wedding going on in this prison cell. A few moments later, there's a whole racket going on in the cell, singing and dancing, Siman Tov, Mazel Tov, ich weiß was, what they were singing. The warden comes running, what's going on? Who got married? So, and nobody's answering. Everybody is in such a great state of joy. Everybody's singing. So he grabs one of the non-Jewish cellmates. Says, "What's going on over here?" He says, "I have no idea." "So why are you dancing?" He says, "Something to do with that Jew." He says, "Why is he dancing?" He says, "I have no clue." "What?" He says, "I don't know what it is, but I know it's something to do with that pail. Something that pail in the middle of the room, that's causing the whole simcha." So the warden says, "Aha! I'm going to teach him." And he takes the pail out of the room. Right? And sure enough, that's when Rav Zusha was able to start davening. Right? So this story has a lot of very profound lessons to it. You know, the power of joy, even in the most difficult moments. But this is also the story of CHESHVAN, the month of CHESHVAN. The month of CHESHVAN seems like a difficult time. It seems like it has a pail of garbage. And sometimes in our life we have these months of CHESHVAN. where we feel like there's garbage in our life. So what do we do then? It's very easy, and it's not easy, I shouldn't say it's easy, it's natural that we become upset. We act like Reb Zusha at first. We start crying. We get down. But then there's the wisdom and the power and the courage and the ability to stand up and to start dancing in the face of this pail. Because of this pail, to start dancing. Because this is God telling us that I know that you have the strength to overcome whatever challenge that you have. This is God telling us that you have whatever it takes to face your challenge and to overcome your challenge. This is the month of CHESHVAN. It seems like it's a month without holidays, but with our effort, we will bring the Geulah, we'll bring Mashiach in this month. So far, this is Nun. This is the fact that there are no holidays, the month of Bull, the month of Mar CHESHVAN, connected with rain. Where does that leave us with a Scorpio? How does a scorpion come into the picture? What is a scorpion? So, in biblical and in Talmudic thinking, there are two dangerous elements in the desert that are recorded. Other than the natural elements, obviously the sun and lack of water, but there are two sources of poison. There are snakes and scorpions. But the Torah teaches us that these are very fundamentally different types of poison. The poison of a snake is referred to as a hot poison, a poison that burns up the person. And the poison of a scorpion is referred to as a cold poison. In fact, it says in some places, and this is also very interesting, that a scorpion is able to withstand very, very cold temperatures. That a scorpion only stings. I didn't confirm this, so if there's any zoologist here or whatever the people that study these things are, that a scorpion stings only when he's very thirsty, when he's cold. The thirst takes us back to water, but we won't get into that right now. We'll focus on the type of sting of the scorpion. There are two different challenges that we face in our life. There's a challenge of heat, which is passion, anger, ego. And then there's a challenge of coldness. Coldness is apathy, not caring about another person, laziness, not caring about our mission in life, not caring about our soul, not caring about our connection with God. These are two different types of challenges. Laziness, depression. Which one is worse? The poison of fire or the poison of a scorpion? The poison of a snake or the poison of a scorpion? And Jewish teaching tells us that the sting of a scorpion is by far worse than the sting of a snake. There's an interesting halacha. I recommend that you don't practice this, or you try not to put yourself in the situation. There's an interesting halacha that says that when you're praying the Amidah, and even if there's a snake wrapped around your feet, you're still not allowed to move. So it says in halacha. Don't practice at home. When you pray the Amidah, even if there's a snake wrapped around your feet, you're not allowed to move. Because you're praying the Amidah, you're standing before God, you have to have respect. What's this running around with when you're standing before the king? However, it says, if there's a scorpion, you're allowed to run away. Why so? There could be different reasons for it. But according to the idea that we're discussing over here is that there are two different types of poison. There's a poison of heat, and then there's a poison of coldness. And one of the messages of the month of CHESHVAN is a challenge of coldness. So how do you deal with the challenge of coldness? When a person is feeling cold, when a person is feeling down, a person is feeling disconnected. So you should know, number one, that this is the challenge of this month. Immediately after we have the high of Tishrei, we immediately go into the coldness, the scorpion of CHESHVAN. Why so? How so? And this is a very, very important point in discussing the zodiac, in discussing the sign of the month, is that Yiddishkeit teaches us that you're not dictated, you're not forced in to behave or to act a certain way just because that is the nature of that month. What Yiddishkeit tells us is that this is the natural experience. You should know that this is what's going to happen. Now, why is it important for us to know this? Because when you know of a certain reality, you know to avoid it. You know to empower yourself, and you know to overcome it. So now that we come from the month of Tishrei, we go into the month of no holidays. It's dark, it's empty. It's not because it's in order for you to become depressed, but on the contrary, that you should turn this, transform this, to transform the cold poison, to learn how to overcome the cold poison. This is the strength of life. The strength of life is not to live in a situation without any challenges. The strength of life is to know how to face challenges and float above them. Like with water. The point of life is not to learn how to live underwater, but to learn how to float above water. Then when you have the rushing waters of the floods, when you have the rushing waters that threaten to drown you in one way or another, God forbid, not that you should just give up, try to fight against it, and when that doesn't work, just allow yourself, God forbid, to drown. But to learn to embrace the challenges that you have, and to learn how to overcome them, to utilize the power of that challenge, to live up to something much greater. And you know what happens when you float? You rise higher. You become closer. Higher above. And this is what the scorpion is about. The challenge of coldness, which is the challenge of this month. So one thing is to know this challenge and to learn how to overcome this challenge. To know that this is the challenge that you're being given. And number two, to utilize this challenge to your advantage. How so? There's some things in life that we should be cold to. There's some things in life that we should disconnect from. There's some things in life that we should be lazy about. So it depends what we're talking about. We have to be very careful in what goes on in our life. There's certain people, there's certain things, there's certain activities, there's certain behavior that it's much better for us to be cold about. Acts of immorality. We all have certain groups of friends that we know that we shouldn't necessarily associate ourselves with, certain acquaintances we shouldn't necessarily have contact with. Coldness is not such a terrible thing sometimes. Distance is not such a terrible thing, on the contrary. Distance from things that are unhealthy for us is a very, very positive thing. So in this month of coldness, we're coming from a very intense month of heat. A very intense month of closeness. A very intense month of gifts. We go into the opposites. Because this is the mission of our life, to bring the holiness and the intensity and the warmth into the darkness. But at the same time, and part of doing that is by utilizing the coldness in a positive way. By utilizing the distance, having the ability to distance yourself from something that you should distance yourself from certain behavior, from certain environments, to distance ourselves. There's a story with Alter Rebbe, the founder of the Chabad movement, that after he got married, a little while after he got married, his in-laws, his wife's parents, were very wealthy. And a little while after he got married, the Alter Rebbe was living in poverty. He had nothing. A little while after he got married, his in-laws invited him, why don't you come join us, live with us. We'll have a very comfortable life. And the Alter Rebbe answered that a baby in its mother's womb is very, very comfortable. It has no challenges, and it really doesn't want to go out. But once it goes out, it doesn't go back in. That's what the Alter Rebbe answered his mother-in-law. Point being, yes, perhaps it would be much more secure and much more comfortable and much more safe in your home. But that's not the point of life. That's not living. Just like the baby that's born. Why doesn't the baby go back into its mother's womb? Because that's not living. What's living is there's a purpose, there's something to achieve, there's something to accomplish. Alter Rebbe is saying life is not about being safe. Life is not just about being safe. Life is not just about being comfortable, but life is in order to accomplish something, in order to achieve something. Tishrei is like being in our mother's womb. Tishrei is like basking in the glory and the holiness. CHESHVAN is like being born. Being born, you cry, it's uncomfortable, but that's when you're fulfilling your purpose of living. That's when you're able to make a difference. In the glory, it's nice. You've celebrated, great. You've participated, fantastic. In CHESHVAN, that's where you really start living. That's when you're able to channel yourself, and that's where our challenge lies in being able to truly connect to the month of CHESHVAN. Overcoming our challenges, overcoming coldness, to be warm and passionate in these areas that we need warmth and passion, to be cold and disconnected from these areas where we need to disconnect, to realize that our purpose is not just to live in the glory, but to transform the places of darkness, to transform the places of coldness into places that are full of light, warmth, and blessing, the ultimate of which will be with the coming of Mashiach, when this month of CHESHVAN will finally receive its holiday. Happy holiday. You're welcome. Thank you for joining. I want to make a note on the bottom of your note, which you're welcome to take along. Our next lecture will be on Wednesday, November 10th. That is the next month. We'll have Mirza Hashem have every month focusing on the energy and the holidays of that month, which we see are interconnected.